Well, in Canada, the trend of church flipping is growing, with more churches sold and then converted for other uses, like rock climbing, wrestling matches, and even cabaret shows. Joining us with more is the author of a Toronto Realty blog, David Fleming. David, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Before we start this chat, let's just give people a quick flyover. According to reports, in Quebec, 547 churches have been closed, sold, or transformed as of April of this year. In Ontario, half of the religious properties still serve, only half of them serve as places of worship. And in New Brunswick, 9 of its 79 churches have closed this year alone. What's the reason for this?
I don't want to speak to the religious angle of it, but I guess along those lines, maybe there's not as many people going, and there maybe not as many donations. But I think what it comes down to is just the price of real estate. I think churches own some fantastic real estate. From my perspective in the real estate market, they represent some of the best opportunities to convert into very unique residential dwellings.
Well, it's not just residential dwellings. I mean, in Stratford, Ontario, there's a church that is now a revival house holding cabaret shows. The Christ King's Church, built in Sherbrooke, Quebec, is now a rock climbing gym. I'm trying to wrap my head around that one. In Toronto, several churches have been turned into, as you said, luxury lofts. Yep. In Ferguson Cove, Nova Scotia, the Stella Maris Chapel, built in 1846, is now a bed and breakfast. I guess it requires a really visionary developer to look at a church and see something other than a church.
Yeah, and you know, one of the most common complaints I get among buyers is they say two things. I don't want something cookie cutter, and I don't want a box in the sky. And so obviously living in a converted church loft is going to give you neither of those. You're going to get probably the most unique loft out there. Repurposed buildings such as, let's say, warehouses or old industrial sites, they represent some of the hottest real estate in the city. Think about the brick, think about the beams, think about the high ceilings, the big picture windows. That's what churches represent. You know, to go back to what you were saying before, Canadians who attended church at least once a month. In 1986, we're talking 43% of Canadians. In 2012, 27%. How much of this is a financial pressure on these churches? How much of it is just an attractive offer, something better came along for the church? I mean, it's not my business. I'm not in the church business. From the real estate angle, I can tell you that if you have an incredible opportunity to cash out, some of these churches have had, let's say, a church building, and then next door there's a parking lot. They may keep one or sell one. Some of them have a rectory next door. So a lot of the churches are basically splitting off the land that they own, keeping a portion to satisfy the demand that there is in the congregation, and then using that money that they can cash in from a developer to, say, do renovations or do something better for the congregation.
What is the most unique transformation that you've ever seen of a church?
I would say probably 40 Westmoreland. It's a condo in the west end of Toronto. It's absolutely gorgeous. The units are breathtaking. The ceiling heights, think about 25-foot ceilings, more brick and beam than I've ever seen, and they are the very definition of luxury real estate.
David, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.